Thank you for clicking on this video. My team and I recorded this video, and the intent was to show everybody three things, which is how to buy a flip at the right price, how to negotiate for risk and identifying risk, and then third, negotiating a win-win. Everybody knows they want to win, but you also need that seller to win so you have a successful transaction. And I hope this gives you enough detail. Enjoy. This is the case study for 450 East 4th Street, Unit 221, Santa Ana, California. This is a success story on buying right. This case study should help real estate investors on how to negotiate and how to identify risk and how to get the best price and make your money on the purchase. So starting out here, this property is located in downtown Santa Ana, California, and it was brought to me by another realtor who knows that we like to flip properties. The property was identified as a distressed property. The homeowner lives out of the state. They haven't received rent in 4 years. They haven't paid their association dues in years, and so they were ready to get rid of this property. We negotiated a sales price based on associated risk. The associated risk before I got inside the property was that the occupants hadn't paid rent in 4 years, and Santa Ana, California is subject to rent control. So I'm taking on this property subject to removing or even questionable whether or not I can actually remove those tenants. So this is a long play. I don't know what the cost would be, whether I can evict or if I have to pay those people to move out of the property. So here's the story. We got the executed contract and I skip traced the occupants in the home. I found a disconnected phone number. I found a next of kin, and that happened to be someone that was on the rental application as a 13-year-old tenant from the year 2000. Quick math will show us this person is now 36 years old. I called them and I went into the story on how I was buying the property and who I was and kind of what my intent was, and the story I got back was, hey, we can't be out of the property for another week. This was music to my ears. So now I've mitigated the risk of occupancy and whether or not I have to evict those tenants. So I told the tenant, hey, I'm okay with the 1 week timeline. I'd like to get inside and look at the property. The tenant said, okay, I can meet you there on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Now I've mitigated the second risk, which is the condition of the property. Before this conversation, the interior condition was unknown, and I was taking the property with all the unknown problems. So I met the occupant over there and she gave me a little tour of the property, and I got to see exactly the conditions they were living under, and here they are here on my screen. This is the kitchen. This is the bedroom / living room. The property has mold. The property is barely livable. The odors, if I could identify them, I would say urine, feces, mold, dust and dirt, spider webs on the walls. I left the property and I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to buy this property for what I initially offered, which was $225,000. The realtor asked me, what would you be willing to pay to take this property in its current condition? And I replied, $150,000. I didn't think we had a chance. In my mind, I thought the seller purchased this property 20 years ago for $50,000. So it's kind of a win-win. A $50,000 purchase, they're tripling their money over 20 years. I'm getting rid of a problem that they have, this distressed asset with a non-paying tenant. I'm taking on the risk of the extent of those repairs. Extent of those repairs was unknown. We didn't know if there was mold inside the walls or if it was surface mold. We didn't know if the tenants would actually move out as promised in that conversation. The success is the tenants moved out, paid them $300, which is our original deposit in the year 2000. We started the repairs and the property is nearly completed, and we're anticipating a $350,000 sales price, and that was supported by comparables in the area. The nugget, the takeaway on this story is identifying risk and compensating for risk. The risks in this property, again, to reiterate, were the occupancy. We didn't know if those tenants were going to move out. We didn't know if the property was going to be, if we could even move them out, if we could even evict them. So we had success there, but we negotiated the price based on that risk, that occupancy risk. And the second thing was the interior condition and the extent of the damage. It was unknown. So without going into further exploratory inspections and digging in to see how the depth of that mold or what the extent of that remediation was going to be, we assumed that risk and we were compensated for it on the sales price. We also negotiated what I call a win-win. The seller was able to sell the property for 3 times what they paid for the property and remove a tenant who was not performing and remove all the liability of fixing the mold and all the damages to the property themselves. The moral of the story is identify the risk, negotiate for the risk, find a win-win on your purchase. Follow us for more stories from our flippers, from us as investors. Diversified Financing Solutions. We are real estate investors, financing from investors for investors. That's what FIFI is. Follow us for more stories like this.